I didn't know what was wrong, not exactly. But something had shifted. Something had slipped between us and quietly taken root like a splinter under skin, festering out of sight. At first, it was just the quiet. Not the peaceful kind you sit in with someone you love. No, this was the dead air that follows disinterest. I'd say something, and she wouldn't look up from her phone. I'd touch her arm in passing, and she'd flinch like I startled her. At night, her body curled away from mine like she was conserving warmth for someone else. Her name was Megan. We met in college. I was drawn to her ambition. She was the kind of person who planned things down to the month. Career goals, savings milestones, even where she'd live by 35. I was the spontaneous one, the reckless optimist who made her laugh. Together, we worked. At least, that's what I believed. But by our 7th year of marriage, something had dimmed in her. Or maybe in us. I remember the Tuesday it began to eat at me. She told me she had a late meeting, some leadership workshop downtown. I believed her. I always believed her. But when I walked into the kitchen later that evening, her tablet was still open on the counter. A calendar app was on the screen. The block of time she claimed to be in a workshop? Empty. No entry. No anything. My stomach tightened, but I told myself it was nothing. The next day, she kissed me goodbye, but her eyes were somewhere else. Not distant in the poetic sense. I mean, she was thinking about something else. You can tell when someone's mind is with another person. It was the same way she used to look at me in the early years. Present, hungry, alert. That gaze was gone. The house felt different, too. She started keeping her phone face down. Started taking longer showers. Started calling me from the car instead of from the office. Reception's better outside, she claimed. I didn't accuse her. I didn't ask. But I watched. I started noticing patterns. Patterns I shouldn't have had to look for. Fridays, she stayed out later than usual. She wore perfume she hadn't touched in years. She wore that red coat I bought her 2 Christmases ago, the one she said was too flashy for work. And always, she came home humming under her breath. I told myself maybe she was just finding herself. People change. Maybe this was growth. But the part of me that remembered the little things, her tells, her habits, her tics, knew better. One night, my friend Marcus texted me. Just 5 words. "Man, I think I saw Megan." I replied, "Where?" He called. Voice tight. "Downtown. Near Easton. With some guy? Holding hands." I didn't say anything. Just stood there, phone warm against my ear, heart hollowing out like a rotted log. He added, "I wasn't sure if I should tell you, but I figured you'd want to know." I said thank you. I don't remember. I sat down at the edge of the bed, the same bed Megan and I had shared for nearly a decade, and stared at the red coat hanging on the back of the door. Part of me wanted to be wrong, but something deep in my chest cracked open, quietly, like ice splitting across a frozen lake. I didn't sleep that night. My eyes were closed, but my mind was wide open, racing through possibilities, rewinding the last few months like surveillance footage. The thing about suspicion is that once it takes root, it grows teeth. I started seeing clues in places I would have ignored before. Her phone always on silent. The passwords changed. The subtle way she angled her laptop away from me when I walked by. I remembered once, months ago, she smiled at a message and locked her phone so quickly it was almost instinct. It wasn't paranoia. It was clarity I hadn't wanted. The next morning, Megan left for work wearing that same red coat. Said she had a networking lunch. Said it with her back turned. I stayed home. Worked from the dining room, drinking coffee that tasted like ash. Every sound outside made me look up. Every vibration from my phone twisted my gut. At 1:03 p.m, I got a text. "Marcus, Easton Plaza. Just saw her. Same guy. They hugged this time." I didn't respond. Didn't know how. That evening, she came home with takeout and a too wide smile. Chinese food. My favorite. But she never brought food home unless something was wrong. Some part of her was still trying to manage appearances. We ate in silence. I watched her more than the food. The way she chewed, distracted. The way she avoided my eyes. Later, I offered to take the trash out. Not out of politeness. I wanted to check the car. I slid into the driver's seat of her Civic and turned the ignition just enough to activate the console. Her Bluetooth history popped up. Stan's iPhone. Not once. Not twice. 5 connections in the last 2 weeks. I turned the car off and sat there in the cold, the trash bag at my feet, forgotten. That was the first undeniable sign. Not just a hunch. Not just a friend's blurry glimpse. That was evidence. Data. Truth. And somehow, it didn't give me relief. It made everything worse. Because now I knew. And knowing meant something had to change. I bought a burner phone. Not because I was proud of it, but because I couldn't look at Megan without my throat closing. I needed distance. I needed to see the truth with my own eyes, without tipping her off. I installed a tracking app the next time she left her phone unattended in the bathroom. 3 minutes. That's all it took. It made me feel sick. Like I was becoming someone else. Someone I didn't like. But what do you do when the person you trust most is the one unraveling you? On Thursday, she told me she had a conference out in Glenwood. She packed a duffel. Took the nicer lingerie. The little black bag she only used for overnights. Said she'd be back by Saturday. She kissed me lightly before she left, like I was an acquaintance she didn't want to offend. As soon as the front door closed, I grabbed the burner. By midnight, the location pinged. Not Glenwood. Not a hotel. A residential house, 2 towns over. Stan's house. I stared at the map until the screen blurred. I should have thrown the phone against the wall. I should have driven out there and banged on the door and asked what the hell they thought they were doing. But I didn't. Instead, I sat on the floor of our bedroom, lights off, my back pressed to the nightstand, listening to the hum of the HVAC and trying to remember how we got here. Trying to remember when we stopped being us. I started collecting things. Screenshots. Phone logs. Credit card charges. Uber receipts. It didn't take long. The trail was all there, just never meant for me to follow. That weekend, I told her I was going to visit my brother in Maine. A lie. I drove to a cheap motel outside town and sat alone in a stale room with my laptop, organizing a folder titled Megan. I wasn't angry yet. Not fully. I was stunned, like the ground had dropped out beneath me and I was still waiting to hit bottom. The pain wasn't in the betrayal. Not exactly. It was in the calmness of it. The way she smiled. Slept beside me. Said goodnight. She didn't just cheat. She erased me while I was still in the room. I used to think grief came in waves. But that week, it came like a flood. No rhythm. No logic. Just everything, all at once. There were moments I stood in the shower with the water scalding hot and couldn't feel a thing. Times I drove past familiar streets and didn't recognize where I was. Once, I ended up parked outside a Dunkin' Donuts, just staring at the steering wheel, hands clenched so tight my knuckles went white. Flashbacks came in pieces. The way she used to laugh when I misquoted movies. Her voice singing along with the radio. That night in December when she slipped a note into my coat pocket that just said, *forever. Cruel how love lingers in fragments. How betrayal weaponizes memory. I started drinking again. Not heavily. Not to forget. Just enough to feel something warm trickle down and remind me I was still here. At work, I wore the mask. I nodded at meetings. Hit deadlines. No one noticed the deadness in my eyes. Or maybe they did, and no one cared. One night, I pulled out our wedding album. I didn't plan to. I was just looking for a passport. But there it was, tucked into the shelf like it hadn't turned radioactive. Page after page of smiles. Her in that lace dress. Me looking dazed with joy. People clapping. Kissing. Dancing. Lying. I tore out the last photo. Us kissing beneath sparklers, and set it on fire in the kitchen sink. Watched it curl and blacken until only ashes remained. Something in me broke that night. Not in an explosive way. In a quieter, colder one. The way a man realizes the woman he loves doesn't love him back. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. I stopped checking the tracker. Stopped opening the folder. I already knew enough. I just didn't know what to do with it. She came home late on a Sunday. Said her meeting had run over. Still had her conference lanyard hanging around her neck like a prop. I watched her place her tote bag on the counter, peel off her coat, then look at me. Something in my face must have startled her. Maybe it was the stillness. Maybe it was the fact that I hadn't said a word in minutes. She asked, "Everything okay?" I nodded toward the dining table. On it sat my laptop, open to a folder labeled with her name. "Sit," I said. She hesitated, then sat. Her eyes darted to the screen. I watched her pupils tighten. No words yet. Just the low hum of the refrigerator and the aching pause between two people on the edge of destruction. I clicked open the screenshots. The texts. The Bluetooth logs. The GPS data. I know Megan. I know everything. She swallowed. Her mouth opened. Closed. "Say something," I said. But there was nothing. No denial. No gasp. Just the sag of her shoulders. Like a balloon losing air. And then, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I laughed. Cold. Dry. You packed a weekend bag. You wore the lingerie I bought you on our honeymoon. You connected your damn phone to his car stereo. What part of that wasn't meant? She flinched. Her eyes were wet now, but I didn't care. I was past sympathy. Past rage. Was it love? Was it just sex? Were you bored? Lonely? Trying to prove something to yourself? She whispered, I don't know. Don't lie to me. Not now. Silence. I waited. She finally said, he made me feel seen. My stomach dropped. Seen? I repeated. Like I didn't. Like the last 10 years were what? A blindfolded parade? She didn't answer. And that silence told me everything I needed to know. I stood. We're not fixing this. Her eyes widened. Please. No. I let you in. All the way in. You don't come back from this. She broke then. The kind of crying that folds a person in half. But I just stood there, watching. And for once, I didn't feel anything. For the first few days, we pretended. Not in the sense of trying to fix things. That was dead. But in the way people keep going through the motions because it's easier than deciding what happens next. She stayed in the guest room. I kept to our bedroom. We didn't talk unless we had to. There was no yelling. No drama. Just silence. Like the house itself was exhausted by us. She left early, came back late. I didn't ask where she went. I didn't need to. The truth was already in me like glass under skin. Every conversation was transactional. Groceries. Bills. Mail. It was like we'd become co-workers sharing a cubicle in a collapsing building. One night, I heard her crying through the wall. And I hated that I felt something. Not sympathy. Just that twitch of the past. That sick muscle memory of wanting to hold her. To fix it. Even now. Even after everything. The next morning, I saw she'd left a note on the kitchen table. We should talk. I owe you that. I didn't want to talk. I wanted to erase her. But something in me, some pathetic, rusted hope, agreed. We sat in the living room that evening. The same room where we used to watch movies and fall asleep tangled up on the couch. She stared at her hands. I didn't plan it, she said. Stan was just there, and I was tired of feeling invisible. I kept my arms crossed. So you made me invisible instead? I didn't want to hurt you. But you did. Every day you kept going back. Every time you came home and smiled like nothing happened. That was a choice, Megan. She nodded. Tears again. The same tears I used to believe in. I felt lost, she said. You were so checked out. You stopped really looking at me. I flinched. I checked out because I could feel you slipping, I said. You were already gone. I just didn't want to admit it. We sat there for a while. Two people mourning different things. She asked if I wanted to try therapy. I didn't answer. She said she still loved me. I laughed. It was bitter and involuntary. You don't even know what that means. More silence. And then I said it. The words I'd been dragging behind my teeth for weeks. I don't think I can forgive you. She closed her eyes like it physically hurt. I figured. We both looked around the room like strangers waiting for a cab. As if everything we built had evaporated, leaving just walls and dust and memories that no longer made sense. She moved out the following weekend. Didn't fight me on anything. Took only what she needed. Left the rest like it would poison her to keep it. I watched her car pull away from the driveway. I thought I'd feel free. Lighter. But all I felt was empty. Like something had ended and I still didn't know what to do with the silence it left behind. The house stayed too quiet after she left. Her toothbrush was gone. Her hairdryer. The perfume that used to linger in the hallway after she left for work. All of it. Gone. Like she'd never been here. Like I had imagined the whole thing. Except she had been here. For years. For birthdays and funerals. For weekend pancakes and stupid fights about laundry. For 1,000 little things I didn't know I would miss until they were hollowed out. The silence wasn't peaceful. It had shape. It pressed against my ribs at night. I started sleeping on the couch. Not because I couldn't use the bed. I just couldn't lie there without hearing her breathing next to me in my head. I couldn't face the ceiling without remembering the way she'd whisper goodnight in the dark. Some nights I drank. Some nights I didn't. It didn't matter. Nothing dulled it. Nothing gave it form. People started asking. Friends. My sister. Co-workers. What happened? I gave vague answers. It didn't work out. We grew apart. The usual. No one really wants the truth. They want something they can nod along to, something clean. But betrayal isn't clean. It's jagged. It cuts at random. Sometimes I'd see her name on my phone. Emails about splitting bills, scheduling the final paperwork. Each message felt like a funeral invitation. Other times, I saw her by accident. On social media. In my memories. In a stranger's laugh that sounded too familiar. One day, I saw her in person. At the grocery store. She was in the produce section, smiling at someone beside her. Not Stan. A friend, maybe. Or I knew him. She didn't see me. And I didn't say anything. I just stood there behind a display of apples. Watching the person I used to know, trying to understand how someone can change so much and still look exactly the same. When I got home, I deleted the tracker. Burned the folder. Every screenshot. Every log. Every piece of digital proof I thought I needed. None of it mattered now. Truth doesn't undo damage. The divorce papers came in a plain envelope. I signed them at the kitchen table. No ceremony. No tears. Just ink. People say closure is a choice. I don't believe that. Some things don't close. They just stay open in quieter ways. These days, I don't think about her every hour. Just some hours. Fewer than before. I keep the red coat. Not out of sentiment. I just haven't figured out what to do with it. It hangs in the closet like a witness. Like a ghost that doesn't know it's dead. And maybe that's what we were in the end. A haunting. Not a love story. Just echoes in a house that forgot how to hold us.